Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited about this.
Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I have not interviewed an optometrist yet. So you're my first.
Well, I hope this doesn't turn you off.
I love it. I love it. I was looking at your history and you started out in math and science, and now you're an optometrist. I'd love to hear about your path and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of optometrists, a lot of eye doctors kind of get into the field because they knew that's what they wanted to do. You wanted to get into medicine. Parents were into it. Mine was the complete opposite of that. I went to a math and science program after high school. So very much catering to, not to say that a lot of them didn't go into medicine. I was really on the math and science program portion of where I was thinking I was going to be an engineer. So like from age 15 to 16, that's where I thought I was going to be, like engineering, computer engineering. For two reasons. Number one, I did find it interesting at that age. Also, my parents, they were born in India. So they come to the US and their dream is that their kids become doctors. It's just the nature of how it works, right? Now, doctors and engineers is okay. But back then it was, you got to be a doctor. And my older brother is a doctor as well. He went. So as a, 12, 13-year-old kid, I was like, yep, I want to do exactly the opposite. I don't want to do anything that my parents want me to do. Even if I had an interest in it, I want to do something different. But I did have an interest in physics and computer engineering as a young kid. And I got into college. That was my major. I was an electrical engineering major for freshman and sophomore year. It's a big investment. And I think after my sophomore year, I had an internship with big oil and gas companies, especially here in Houston. When I did that internship, I just realized this probably isn't what I want to spend my life doing. And I happened to be working at an optometry office at the time when I was in college, and my older brother, who was a physician, said, hey, maybe consider that. Hey, why don't you do pharmacy with me? And, we can just be best friends doing the same major. And I was like, okay, all right. That seems interesting. But my brother was the first one to bring optometry into the fold because I never really thought about it, which is funny because we were both fairly myopic and we had a good relationship with our optometrist. I just never thought about it, even though I was working there. So then I started asking more questions to my boss, who was the optometrist, and getting more of a feel into it. And I got more of an interest into that than pharmacy, because pharmacy at that time for me was, I want to do it because, okay, decent living, good lifestyle, my friend is doing it. Optometry, I had not too much experience outside of my job, but what I did in my job, I liked. And then I also good lifestyle, et cetera. And then as I talked to my boss, who was an optometrist, liked it more. So I decided, and I didn't want to do family practice or be a pediatrician or a cardiologist. I didn't want to do that for the simple fact that I was still rebellious against my parents, right? Even as an 18-year-old in college, I definitely didn't want to do that. But also I just knew, and my brother even told me, like, if you're going this route into medicine, regardless of whether it's pharmacy, optometry, medicine, I mean, you gotta have a passion. Have a passion for that, for sure. I at least had an interest into optometry. And I kind of tells people now, and especially students that come to our practice, like, I kind of picked it randomly. And I feel so blessed because of how randomly I picked it that I fell in love with it. And once I got into optometry school, like from day one, like it was great. And what really pushed me over the edge was probably the last year, my last externship. It was just a complete eye-opening experience where if I thought I had loved it, that passion went exponentially higher. So I feel very blessed. I randomly picked this profession to a certain degree, and it ended up being something that was this passionate.
That's amazing. So it's funny though, like, I think there's something in here for the kids of all ages, meaning teenagers or 35-year-olds. Find what you're passionate about doing, and that can change over time, right? Or maybe you're bouncing around in different places and you're trying to figure out what that thing is, and then start. And then if it's not your thing, it's okay to change. Even if you put in a couple of years of school, or if you got an internship and realized this wasn't the thing, it's okay. Better to switch now than to wait 10 years and then switch, because now you're behind.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing worse than being stuck in a position for the rest of your life that you're not happy with. I mean, even if you make $1 million a year, and there's people that there's examples of, they do really well financially, but they're not happy, and you can't replace that. So I would say, and the tricky part is at that age, if, I think things are going to change 10 years from now compared to like when you might have a couple years on me, but still we're kind of the same age of when, like, hey, you go to grade school, middle school, high school, college. Like, that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
And then grad school, there's this fear factor of like, okay, well, I went to college and now I have to change a major and nobody else is doing that. I don't want to do it because none of my friends are doing it. My parents say don't do it. My friends' parents are saying that's going to do it because you're a failure because nobody else is doing it. Happiness is probably more paramount than what they think of you. And if you can make, and here's a great example. My best friend at that time that was going the pharmacy route, they love it. He was doing it for the exact same reason. Like, hey, okay, I just want that lifestyle. It's a decent income, but he didn't have a passion for it. Went to pharmacy school. First year, he's like, yo, I'm done. I'm dropping out. We all killed him because we were still in college. What are you doing? You're going to ruin your life. This is a 20-year-old scolding a 21-year-old. Like, we know anything. That was all of us. And I'm sure his parents were very similar at the time. And he switches, basically, he's happy. I mean, he's doing financially 3x better than he ever would have. Wow. And he's much, but everybody doubted. But sometimes you have to follow that route. And I don't want to speak for him. I think he would have been okay of having less financial results, of being happier. But that both of those things happen just shows the result. And of being boxed into these certain roles of how coming up is a big issue. And I think that dynamic is definitely going to change in the future for kids coming into university. I think so. So I think it relays follow your passion, not follow dollar signs.
Yeah, beautiful. I do believe in some of this. Some of it's the newer generation who is more concerned about passion and giving back to the world than they are about money. And I think part of that is even COVID, because during COVID, we all realized it's like, wait a minute. Oh, you got the fancy car. So what? It doesn't matter. And you saw a lot of people actually leave the workforce because they're like, I got enough money. I don't care about the money anymore. And I kind of like staying at home and not driving an hour and a half each way to grind through some traffic, do a job for some person that I really don't like working for, that I never really cared about in the first place.
And I think the point that you made of having that passion, this younger generation, that's a very admirable thing to see. Like they care about giving more than just making sure that they're successful financially. There is a internal perspective of what's being fulfilled.
It's so true. Okay. So you go out and you get this degree, and then did you immediately go out and say, well, I'm going to start a business and it's going to be called Evolutionary Eye Care? Like, how?
Yeah. Interesting enough. So our fourth year of optometry school, so this is now grad school, but our fourth year of optometry school, a friend of mine, there's actually 4 of us. We had this business idea at that time, still young, stupid kids, but at least we're thinking about it of, hey, we want to open practice, private practice. And what ended up happening, it was just me and my now current partner. 2 of them fell out, us 2 kind of went forward with it. And once we figured out it was going to be us 2, we wanted some expansion. And he's a New Yorker, Dr. David Chow. So he went back to New York, practiced for a while. I was in San Antonio and had a lot of different experiences. I worked in a rural town for a year. I worked in an optometry practice for 2 years. Great experiences all around, just gaining medical knowledge as we're kind of gaining some business knowledge, because you don't really get that in medical optometry to the degree that you need. So we're trying to learn as much as we can on the business side while we're still working, creating capital. the amount of money that we need to at least where a bank wouldn't turn us. Remember, this is back in pre-2020. This got to be 2013 to 2016.
Okay.
Our plan was we'll work for 5 years, each of us. And then we're going to move back to Houston. That's where I'm from. That's where we both went to school. That 5-year plan turned to a 3-year.
Wow.
Yeah. He moved back a little bit earlier than me. I was still in San Antonio and we started moving pretty quickly. And it got to the point where I couldn't do those things remotely. Like we're breaking ground. I can't do these emails. I have to be there in person. So I finally moved back. We were doing relief work, base work for other practices while the business was built. And once it was built, the good thing for us is that there was 2 of us. So a lot of private practice owners, when they open solo, it's very hard to pay the bill, personal.
Yes.
Side of business bill, because having this practice, you're not making any money. You're in debt for however long it's going to be. Luckily we had each other. So you would work there 3 days a week. I'd work there 3 days a week. We could do relief work. So we'd have income coming in to pay our own rent, mortgage, pay our student loans, etc. And actually, to be honest, both of us were working 7 days a week for about 5 years. Clinic care for that long, just so that there was money to make sure that we can cover our loan payments, our rent payment. We can cover payroll. We could cover any unexpected expenses. We got broken into twice within the first 6 months of our opening our practice. So you can imagine how devastating that is. And unexpected expense, right? And a lot of people don't know that, hey, you have to budget unexpected expenses. That's a real thing. And we didn't know that. So that was an on the fly lesson. But I think us leaning on each other helped a lot. I think our work ethic helped a lot, that we're willing to work much to do what we needed to do. And then from there, we can get into it. It expanded because of a couple of different.
Okay. So that's awesome. So first of all, I love that you guys said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to try to do this right away. We're going to go make some money, get really good at our trade and learn the business side as much as we can, build up a little nest egg, and then we'll start it together. I also think this kind of blows my mind. I mean, first of all, you guys clearly are good friends and you agreed you have this pact to do this.
I'll say this. Another thing that really helped us being a partnership, we were not good friends.
Oh, really? Interesting. Oh, tell me about
that. Was very crucial. So we went to school together. Within my classmates at the University of Houston College of Optometry, we probably talked to each other the most. But he's not my best friend. I'm not his best friend. Obviously we've gotten closer over the years. But I'm saying at the time when this happened, we were very close within our optometry school circle, but he's not in my top 5. I'm not in his top. That's very helpful because when we decided to move forward with the business, we approached it very business-like. It wasn't like, hey, we know each other, we'll be fine. We spend, oh my God. At a time we had no money, the amount of money we spent on lawyers to drop up these contracts and everything, it was ridiculous. But we knew we wanted to be that.
Yes.
We wanted to do it the right, because we saw too many stories of people, best friends going in together. Oh, I love you, and then it all falls apart. We didn't want to ruin the friendship we had, but it wasn't like I wouldn't lose my best friend. If it broke up, we were both going to be okay. We have our best friend. Okay?
I love that. That's brilliant. I hear it all the time. And a lot of times they are really good friends when they get into business, but invariably something happens. And if you don't have an agreement up front and you don't have a prenup, that's an issue. So you have to, and so smartly, even though you didn't really have much money, you came up with all the guidelines before you started. Like that, it's kind of seemed like a crazy investment over time, but how brilliant was that?
I think we knew that from the beginning because we saw some of the horror stories, and because we didn't have that relationship of being the best friend. We were comfortable doing it. Like we knew, like, hey, listen, we like each other, we're friends, but this is a business venture and we can do that. If it was my best friend for 20 years, it might come off a different way. So when we approach each other in a business relationship way to do this venture, it was amicable to both parties. I think that helped. Obviously, we've been in business now over a decade, so we're much closer now than before. But still, even to this day, you wouldn't call me his best friend. I wouldn't call him my best friend. We're obviously much closer. I mean, we probably talk to each other more than our own lives. You know what I mean? It's the nature of the business, but we have our separate lives outside of it. And that was imperative, in my opinion, of making partnerships successful. And if I had any advice for people that go into business together, who would take that advice of maybe don't consider your best friend as the best business partner. I just seen it gone wrong too many times. And how well we've done not going that route, even though we're friends, help. You know, another caveat is like if you go in with your spouse, whole other issue going with. So, like think about it. In the beginning, you're losing money. And when money comes in the issue of relationships, it usually doesn't end well. Because imagine having an issue where, well, we lost $10,000. Yeah, but you're my boy. You should have done this. Like that shouldn't come into the discussion. Like when you can say, well, we didn't make the money that we wanted to because we didn't do these specific items. That's a much more cordial conversation.
Well, it's great that you say that because I found that with business partners, whether they be friends or whether they be spouses, it's like, okay, we have to run this like a business. So if we're spouses, it doesn't matter. We're still having a staff meeting and we're going to discuss our business stuff at the staff meeting. And then when we're done with our business day, as much as we can, we're going to talk about our kids. We're going to talk about television shows. We're going to hang out because now we're spouses and we're business partners, but right now we're spouses. We're going to just talk about other stuff and keep those separate as much as you can. And then the other thing I'll say with spouses or business partners or both, we have to be aligned on what success looks like too. So getting two business partners to agree on what that success looks like 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years from now is super important because if we're not aligned on that, then we're going to have dissonance in the relationship for a lot of different reasons.
That's good. Absolutely. I kind of want to tackle that second point you made because that was something we didn't realize of what success looks like. And it was naive we were as young business owners, didn't know what to look for. I remember having this conversation. We were thinking like, hey, why are we not at this point, say year 3? Why are we not getting what we expect? I remember me and my partner were talking, we're grossing this. Why aren't we making? And we had no idea what the industry average of net. If you make $500,000, what should your net be? If you make $1 million, what should your net be? So I remember thinking it so vividly to this day. And like, at that point it was $500,000. And we're like, why are we making $500,000 and not taking home $500,000? I was like, well, there's a big reason why. Expenses. There's a real threshold of what the net should be. But it was so eye-opening. We don't get that training. We're not business people. We're trained to be doctors, which rightfully so, get a little bit of it because the worst thing you want to do is send a doctor out into the world that's not a good. If you send a doctor out in the world that's a terrible business person, great. They'll be fine. They'll probably be a really great doctor.
Yes.
That was very eye-opening of like, you really don't know what we're doing. And as much as we thinking we're ready, like, oh, we're going to be so much better than everybody else. All these roadblocks that everybody goes through, we're not going to go through that because we're spending the time now, research it and do it. We went through every single hurdle, every single roadblock. You won't know till you go through.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? You got to start. Congrats for doing research because like that, you saved a bunch of stupid tax by doing the research, but you still have to pay the stupid tax.
You got to pay the stupid tax.
Right? It's part of the deal.
Now, the other thing I want to go back to is about when there's husband and wives or spouses that go into business. I've seen all the horror stories. Most of them are bad, but don't get me wrong. There are some that are successful. A good friend of mine, both of them, husband and wife, both good friends of mine, he was very, very well. And it was to your point of how they went into it. each case is specific of how do you go into the business modality? Are you both business oriented? Are you both approaching it the way that you mentioned? And are you tackling problems the same way as a business problem and not a personal problem? And then when you get home, those don't incorporate anything. So it was funny because my wife was mentioning at one point, she has a great job with PepsiCo. She was like, hey, what if I worked for your company as your business manager? I was like, well, that's not going to work. Oh, that's not happening. And she's like, well, why not? I was like, hey, well, let me ask you this. What if I come in one day and I fire you? I'm not accepting that. Like, okay, name me a business where the owner can fire the manager. It was an easy conversation.
It's so true. I think the other thing is having specific roles in your business. Like I've had so many business owners that have complementary talents. And so they kind of know their role in the business, and one might be good in the back end and one might be good in the front end, for instance. And so they can use their strengths and kind of complement each other's weaknesses. And I feel like that's a really good self-awareness to be able to do that, but then to implement that so that you're doing what you love and you're doing what you're good at makes a lot of sense. And having to find roles in your business as partnership has to be important. How did you tackle that one?
To be honest, I wish I had a great answer to that. We fell into it.
Okay.
But we both thought that we could do everything. We're dumb young kids. We're around 20. And we just fell into the roles that we felt comfortable. So I was the numbers guy. So I tracked all of our metrics. I track how financing is going, how ROI is going, how equipment purchase is going. I just tracked all that stuff, how we're going to move forward on expanding, all those things. He's a great people's person. So employees, hiring new staff, payroll, scheduling, that's what he fell into. We just fell into those roles because I think our talents dictated over experience. We would both do everything. And then it didn't take long. I would say 18 months. We're like, okay, yep, this is where we need to go. So I remember when, and he is really great with our team and hiring new employees. We used employees' applications and we'd interview them, and he'd do the first interview, I'd do the second interview, and then we decide to. And at one point I was like, hey, why don't you do all the first interview? Whoever makes it, send it in my way. And then I'll send whoever I think is great after that. Then we'll decide to get. So he'll send me a couple and I'll be like, none of them really great. And he's like, serious? That took me 6 months to get you those 20 people. You don't want any of them? Like that, he was so pissed at me. And I was like, because I didn't go through the process that he went. It wasn't that great. So I told him, I was like, listen, you're the one going through this. You're the one seeing what's going on. If you see potential, and I admitted to him, he's definitely more the people person. He can see talent a little bit better than I can. And I was like, listen, worst case, we can always fire it. We can always let them go. And we have a probation period anyway. Like if you feel confident, you're doing most of the leg. Why have this extra step of my approval?
Yes.
Be that. If you feel confident enough, and you're the one doing the legwork, do it. So I would say probably about 2 years ago, I was like, he doesn't give me any feedback on new hires. He doesn't. And then we'll see what happens after it. And it's worked well. And I think it was the right decision because that was his personality characteristic. And I realized that talent that he had. And we knew that worst case scenario, fine, we let them go. But why are we going through all this?
Yes.
And with business expansion and business equipment purchases, he knows that, hey, that's where I spend my day to day.
Yes. It's really start with your strengths, but it also takes a good amount of trust that you build up over time to be able to do that. It also takes, to be able to do that, takes ego check as well. It's like, hey, I own the business, so I own half the business. Yeah, so what? Yeah, you know how to hire people. I know how to buy stuff. I do the research. Let's go do our things. We'll cut our time in half. We get better leverage that way.
You're right. And the biggest thing to combat both of those is time. You mentioned you build trust You need time. To calm your ego takes time. You're very egotistical. You can be egotistical as a 26-year-old and as a 46-year-old. That's true.
Sure.
But you learn a little bit more about your ego because you make mistakes. You're not making a lot of mistakes yet at 26. And then when you get into like, oh, all right, I'm probably not as smart as I thought. And that's a humbling thing. And I think we were both accepting.
Yeah, I was really smart when I was in college and then post-college in my early 20s. And then I continued to get dumber every year.
I thought I was a genius in high school. I went to this high school college program. So it was in 10th grade. You go basically into college, 10th grade, sophomore, after your sophomore year of high school. And there was the math and science program I was telling you. It was best and brightest in Texas. So to even be admitted is amazing. And you get humbled there because you see some amazing people. You think you're the best in your school. And I went to Houston, which is a big city.
Yeah.
And like you come from a rural city. I'm like, yeah, okay. But you do get humbled to a degree of, what the talent out there is. Then you get into college and you get humbled more because you're not dealing with 100 people. You're dealing with 10,000 people. And then as you get into your profession, you realize, and I think this was the switch. It's not, your intelligence is not what you do on a test. No, it's not Scantron, right? It's not how you did on your Scantron. I could do really well on a standardized test. How do you adapt? Like when you're in the real world and you're doing a business, how do you critically think? How do you take in information and adapt to them? I was not prepared for that and I was not good at it. And to realize that,
I think it's brilliant. Okay, so I want to ask one more question about the beginning and then we'll move on. So you actually, I'm guessing here, you invested in real estate from the start and bought a piece of land and built a...
No, not from the start. No, did that recently.
Okay. Well, talk to me about that because I think it's so interesting and I think it's so smart. And I'll give you my example. In California, lived all over the country. In California, I do a lot of car dealers and they made a lot of money selling cars and servicing cars. But the real money was made in real estate. That was a car dealer that owned 5 or 6 other pieces of real estate that he rented to the other car dealers that were his competitors. That's the guy that was really making the bucks. So I asked, the investment in the real estate can be just as lucrative as the actual practice. So tell me about your strategy. How did you get there?
I will say, I wish we were that smart. It wasn't because we weren't that smart. I think it's important because people need to realize when you come into business and you're opening whatever business, you think like, oh, well, this is the rent. This is what I have to pay. This is the loan amount. Everything's negotiable. Absolutely everything is negotiable. Successful business owners, billionaires, real estate owners, thrive on. They'll come back to you to negotiate. They won't hesitate. No. If you can negotiate, you can realize everything's negotiable. Worst case, you're where you're at. Great. Best case, you might save some money. I would negotiate everything. That was probably the best lesson I've ever learned. Everything is negotiable. And well, this is a big company and I can't do anything. No, you can. They won't hesitate to come to you to negotiate.
Sure.
And that's a big company. And they are negotiable. If you have enough leverage, they'll negotiate with you.
Sure.
We were just tied to that relationship and our contract was coming up and we realized the financial incentive doing it. We would have done that initially, the capital.
Yeah.
You're a young optometrist coming out. We can't afford to buy a $1 million building, whatever. There's nothing we can do. We have to. And people know that we have to. At a certain point, when you get to certain annual revenue, you don't have to be taking advantage of it. You can exit that. You can give them the counter offers and say, hey, I'm going to leave because I'm more valuable to you than you are to me now. And you get into looking at the logistics of owning real estate as much as whatever the loan amounts are. And this is a big project. It's going to be more valuable. So we knew, number one, we didn't want to work with that realtor, the real estate company. That's our landlord. We wanted a bigger space anyway. We wanted to give them the real estate space. So 3 things coming into play. And on top of that, most likely being more profitable in the long term, even with the initial investment. I think those things are. Now, the one thing you got to be comfortable with that, I mentioned my background, South Indian parents that don't really know how all this works. Like I don't have any debt. You pay everything off, no, you're going to have a lot of debt. You got to be okay with multi-million-dollar debt. That's okay. That kind of debt is fine. If you're trading from 1980s financial advice, that's not going to work because this is good debt that's going to be profitable. And you got to be comfortable.
No, that's good. So then let me ask you this. When did you decide that we're going to expand? Because I'm sure you had a great practice in one location, but when did you and your partner say, you know what, let's go bigger? And how do you make that jump?
That's a great question. It's probably the one I get the most because we had a great practice that was doing well. Me and my partner, we probably could have just done that for the rest of our career. We've been fine. And just profitable as we are now, to be honest. Most of our practice is referral based for specialty services. Keratoconus, specialty contacts, vision therapy. We're a very specialized eye care clinic. Does those things. You're likely referred to us for these services. And we're doing that in Sugar Land. So we're getting Rosenberg, Richmond, et cetera, Southwest Houston. And we did Webster, which is like Clear Lake, Friendswood area first. Then we went to Central. And, luckily they've been growing as we needed them to be. But that was the reason of why we expanded. It wasn't even financial, to be honest. It was feedback we had from referring doctors. We need to help more patients. We need to be in other areas. And the next question I get is like, all right, so where's the next place? I'm done. So it's every day, like this broke, credit card machines down, this person leaving. So the logistics that go into 3. So if I have any other advice for entrepreneurs, if you want to go into expand to multiple locations, don't do it. Get your first one as big as you can because the headaches aren't linear. They're not only exponential, they're quantum. Yeah.
But I feel like I've ran into lately a lot of business owners that have expanded and they said exactly what you said. We have 3 locations now and we're making the same profit with the 3 locations as we did with the 1 location. So why am I doing this? Well, you can do it for the real estate game, but I think the bigger question is how do you scale if you choose to scale to do more locations? How do you scale in the right way? Because you should get more profit if you have more exposure, right? So how do you replicate what you do without diluting your best talent or whatever, so you can actually bring more to the bottom line? Any thoughts on that or any insights you've gotten thus far from?
No, I do. I will say that we were not the best example. Like I said, this was not a business decision. This was a serving the community decision.
Yeah.
That's the reason now obviously going to impact our business. We'll obviously do better, but it's not the question that you're asking of the scale, right? Because we could have done it where we don't get those 2 locations and just expand our initial location. We probably didn't want. We didn't have to deal with all the headaches, but decision was not a profit margin decision. It was a serving the community decision. But that's for our practice because our practice is built based on specialties and referrals. Now, with most other practices that do a lot of primary care that have multiple locations, they do very well on scale. They have implementations to make it scalable that is still profitable. And I have some insight on that because of what I learned from them. And I can't implement it all into my practice because I don't do what they do. End goals are different than theirs. My business plan is different than theirs. Okay. Like they're doing primary care. So they come in, eye exam, eyeglasses, contact lenses, couple maybe office visits for dry eye, glaucoma, whatever. But it's all about efficiency, lowering costs, and scaling that to location 2, 3, 4, and repeating.
Yeah, it's leverage more with the same or doing more with less, right? So you have your accounting function, whether you have one location or 5 locations, the accounting function cost probably is about the same or insert.
Yeah, I would say and I can't speak for other businesses. I would say for optometry, you figure that out for primary care, not my business model. But for optometry, I would say you figure it out by office 2 to 3, and then office 3 to 12. It's similar, but you got to figure out on those first 2 to 3. I was willing to lose a little bit on the 2 and 3 for the learning capacity because I had to hire associate doctors to do that also.
Yes.
When an eye doctor graduates, they can do primary. They can't necessarily do what we do. There's a learning curve. And then you have to get respect of your colleague because you have a passion for it. So much. But for the scaling perspective you talk about, I would say 2 to 3, you can gain it. And then from there, you can expand it. Then you go from, I know what I need to do from training. I know what I need to do from I'm looking for staff to get the right people in place for the right property. And then.
Yeah. Then you can roll. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I asked most of my folks
We'll close out on this.
Number one, biggest learning from your business experience, like something you're like, that was a big aha moment for you, that you would pass on for wisdom for other folks.
The negotiation tactic.
Okay.
I had no idea you can negotiate everything. Negotiate your rent from a landlord, negotiate the price of equipment, negotiate everything. If somebody says, hey, let me just ask you, what do you think is like non-negotiable? If you came into, not even business-wise, anything, what do you think is non-negotiable? Like, oh, well, this is the price, obviously.
I don't know. I guess the only thing I would say is maybe insurance. Now you can shop insurance, but you can negotiate insurance. Yeah.
No, you can negotiate it because you say, hey, well, I think it should be this reason, this rate for this many terms. And worst case, you say no. They'll negotiate it if you especially if an agent. The other thing is, I'll give this as an example. This is my funniest example about negotiating. My older brother, who I told you, is a physician, and he does very well, but I still cloud on him because he's a cheapo, because he had the South Indian in him. Well, but this is many, many years ago. I think he was in med school at the time. He bought this huge foam bag, like a bean bag. It's humongous. And 4 or 5 years later, it broke. Somebody punctured it or something happened. It broke. Bought it from Target. You walk into Target 4 or 5 years later. You said, hey, this beanbag broke. I want a refund. And they're like, you have a receipt? Like, no, I don't have a receipt. When was it bought? I don't know. So what do you want to do? I was like, I want a refund. Yes. He knew how ridiculous he sounded, but he just stood there and stated what he wanted to state. And he got a partial refund from it.
That's awesome.
I think there's so much in how business works that's still perception related. Now, I think a lot of that will go away, to be honest. In 20 years, as AI takes over, you won't have that personal connection. But imagine me and you coming to Target, hey, I got this beanbag I bought 20 years ago. Somebody yells, like, get the hell out of here. But he comes in, he's like, complete stone face. Like, yeah, I got it 20 years ago. What?
I'm going to need a refund for this thing. Yeah.
How you present yourself is a real thing. And, I think you should take advantage of that.
I love it. That's brilliant advice. I mean, I've always heard, and I love the idea of and I'll use real estate. You don't make money when you sell real estate. You make money when you buy it. So I've done pretty well, like negotiating as we moved around the country. Homes, like, okay, so we're going to come in and we're going to pick our top 2 homes. We're going to be in the market for 2 days, and we're going to make an offer on the first one. And if we don't like how it's going, we're going to ditch that one and make an offer on the second one. We're going to buy one in the next 2 days. Well, that adds a certain amount of pressure to the people that are selling. So they're like, holy crap. And I tell everybody up front, very transparent, you can take it or leave it. It doesn't matter because we got another one in the queue. Either one's fine with us. Not my wife in most cases, she's like, no, I got to have number one, but they don't know that. Right. So there is that. So everything's negotiable. Okay.
That's the biggest thing with negotiations, especially with doctors who have experience with that. You have business experience, is you're dealing with industry who does have experience. And you think, like, I'm transparent with you, doc. Like, hey, this is what's happening. They're probably not being transparent. Even if they are being transparent, you're in a negotiation. What says you have to be?
Yes. Beautiful. Okay. Last question. How do you keep your mindset when things aren't going right? When your office got broke into twice in 6 months, how do you make it through that to get to the other side and keep going, and you're not making any money? You're working 7 days a week for 5 years. How do you keep that going? Any advice on that?
Yeah. Number one, my partner helped a lot. I was going crazy and we kind of tame each other. But there are two things that helped. But when I opened my private practice, I reached out to a lot of mentors and they said, hey, make sure you pick something keeps you sane as you go through this. Because you're going to go through some stuff. So pick something. And I picked working out, the gym, because when you go through building a business, late nights, you eat terrible, easy to gain 30 pounds in 3 months. So I concentrated to make sure that I wasn't going to obliterate my body. I made sure that I would always go to the gym. Number two, for 2 reasons. I wanted to make sure that I can be healthy. If I'm going to go through this, I'm a physician, like I should be physically, but also I need the energy. Like if you're not physically fit, you can't be as physically energetic as you could be. And that gave me the positive energy I need. That helped it a lot. So when people tell me like, hey, what's the one thing you're going to not sacrifice? I'm not sacrificing that. So that made me in the correct mind state. And that could be whatever, whether you're doing yoga, whether you're doing weightlifting, whether you're doing cardio, whatever it is that you're doing. That portion, I think, is very, very. I did some meditating. That was probably year 2. A conscious effort to realize that the universe is not just your business. It's not just your problems. And being appreciative of the things that you have. Like even in the beginning, like, hey, it might be in debt, not making any money, and I have a struggle coming up that I have to work so hard for. I'm eating today. I have a family that loves me. Sometimes we don't take into effect all the things that we have, focus on things that we don't, even when times are tough. So I think those two things help that.
I love that. An attitude of gratitude makes all the difference. If you see things with a thankful heart, and that's the way you go through life, all the difference. It makes everything around lemonade instead of lemons. So that's a great mindset. I appreciate that. And then I love that you have a non-negotiable, I will be doing this, whatever exercise routine, whatever that is, working out forever, X amount of minutes a day, regardless. And knowing that it actually helps you, that getaway actually is worth the time investment from a physical point of view, and also from a mental point of view. Like that's brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's been one of the smartest decisions I made is, let's say make a little extra in revenue and I'm in now hypertension and diabetes and all the other things. Like what was it all worth?
Yeah. You're going to give the time back at doctor's office in the hospital anyway. Dr. Pillai, this is great. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your honest review. And I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and good luck on just rocking evolutionary eye care and taking it to the next level. Congrats.
I appreciate you so much. Really great conversation. I really thank you so much.